What's going on, everybody? Liam O'Reilly, Vermont economic realtor with Jerry Riley Real Estate. I hope you're doing well. We could see the housing market remain stagnant for the next 4 years, at least prices, and that's according to Goldman Sachs. Personally, I agree with their reasoning, and I think if their predictions are correct, we could see a further divide between the rich and the poor. And here's how. So, if you watched my last video, I discussed how rising credit card debt and revolving consumer loans, decreasing M2 money supply, and the reduction in the Federal Reserve's balance sheet has the potential to cause home prices to decline. And while I think that's one of the possible scenarios for the US housing market, I personally think a stagnant market is more likely because of what's called the lock-in effect. So, if you don't know what the lock-in effect is, basically it's the phenomenon where current homeowners are locked into a mortgage rate that is lower than what they can get in the current mortgage market. So basically, from around 2008 to 2022, the Federal Reserve kept their interest rates low. They bought mortgage-backed securities and increased the size of their balance sheet, which both of those things, we're not going to go into exactly how it reduces mortgage rates, but what it did, the result of that was mortgage rates were artificially low for an extended period of time. Now, the Federal Reserve is letting their mortgage-backed securities roll off of their balance sheet. They're raising their Fed funds rate, which is increasing interest rates across the board, including mortgage rates. So now home buyers, when they go to, or people who have already purchased a home, current homeowners, are disincentivized from selling their home, giving up their current low rate mortgage, and purchasing a property with a 6.5, 7.5 mortgage rate, depending on their credit score and what day it is. So while I think long term, where the mortgage market's at is a good thing, right now it's causing issues when it comes to supply and affordability in the housing market. And so those reasonings is why Goldman Sachs is predicting that the US housing market might remain flat over the next few years. So let's get into their article here. So we can see the title, 4 years of market gridlock. Goldman Sachs issues U.S. home price predictions through 2026, and they leave this nice chart here that shows exactly what they're predicting. So basically, a slight increase in home prices over the next 4 years is what Goldman Sachs is predicting. And I tend to agree with their reasoning. And if we look deeper into the lock-in effect, you can really see where these forces are at play. So hopping over to this article by Fortune, they say right here, they're talking about the lock-in effect. To better understand the lock-in effect, consider that the fact that 91% of mortgage borrowers have an interest rate below 5%. Below 5%. And if rates are at 6.5, 7.5% right now, depending on your credit score and what day you're locking into a mortgage, that's significantly higher than 5% or below that most homeowners are locked into. So there's not a huge incentive for them to give up that low rate, purchase a more expensive property, and have that higher monthly payment for years on end. So, and that's what we're seeing in the inventory. If we look at this chart right here, this is new listings year over year. We see 2023 is significantly down from that cluster of new listings above. Even 2017, 2022, which had, inventory was still tight in 2021 and 2022, but it was still right around the historic norm. And now, because of these higher interest rates, people aren't listing their home. And I think if we dig into the numbers a little bit deeper, you can understand why it just doesn't make sense for people to list their home and sell their property with these higher mortgage rates. So if we take a look at the stats, at least here in Vermont, so this is from December of 2020. It's about the oldest data we have with this specific format that's, I think, easy to understand. But if we just take a look at it, so median sales price for single-family homes in December of 2020, you can see it was up 15% year over year, obviously very significant. But in December of 2020, the median sales price was $350,000. Now, with a mortgage rate of around 3%, which is roughly where interest rates were around that time, or if they weren't around there, the homeowner potentially had the ability to refinance into a 3% rate, which is where a lot of people are. So $350,000 purchase price, down payment of 20% down, 30-year loan, 3% rate. Their total monthly payment is $1,800 a month, and this is accounting for a $600 monthly property tax. So under $2,000 a month for the medium priced home, okay, in the area that I'm at. Now, if we fast forward to the current market, June of 2023, we take a look at the median sales price. So now that median sales price went from 350 to 500,000. Interest rates are at around 7%. So if we take a look, the property taxes remain the same. 499,000, that same 20% down payment, so you don't get any PMI. 7% interest rate. Now the monthly payment is almost double, $3,321 per month for essentially the same property, right? Because this is the median price property. This is not a bigger property. So if you look at basically that really illustrates where the lock-in effect is and why sellers are not incentivized to sell, which is keeping inventory low, and what Goldman Sachs is predicting will keep the housing market relatively stable and prices relatively stable for the next few years. So now with M2 money supply decreasing, and if we look at credit card loans increasing, those are potential red flags for consumers. But will they be forced to sell their home and give up that low interest rate and bring more inventory to the market? In my opinion, I don't think so. I think it will make more sense for current homeowners to keep their homes, even if we enter into a recession and they receive pressures, financial pressures that make it a burden for them to make their mortgage payment. And mostly that's because there's not many options. So, their options are either to sell and purchase a median home, essentially the same home, right? Because it's the median home at a higher price with a higher interest rate and have a more expensive mortgage payment, which is not going to be beneficial if they already have less money and are taking out credit card debts to supply their lifestyle. But also rent has gone up significantly. So if we think about it, I personally just rented a 2-bedroom apartment in Burlington for $2,200 a month plus utilities, right? That's more expensive than what the median buyer is locked in for the mortgage rate, or than the monthly payment that the median home buyer back in 2020 is likely locked in for. So, maybe unless they're really forced to sell and to take that equity and use it to supply their immediate financial needs, it's not going to make sense long term for these homeowners to sell and rent, even if they encounter really difficult financial situations. And the last thing I wanted to bring up when it comes to the supply side and the lock-in effect is you would really think that this is a good opportunity for builders to jump into the market and take advantage of the low inventory that's out there, but that's not what we're seeing in the data. What we're seeing in the data is home builder demand is down 8%. And I'll just show you the headline of the article. And again, all these articles will be in the description for you, but U.S. home starts fall by 8% in June, the biggest drop in a year. So we're not seeing inventory increase from builders as well. And I think that, a lot of that has to do is with the lack of profit, right? Building supplies are more expensive. Labor is more expensive in years past, and affordability is down. So while we need a lot more inventory in the market to satisfy the demand, there's not as much profit for builders. So because of that, there's not a ton of new construction coming to the market. Now, the reason why I agree with Goldman Sachs, and I think their reasoning is sound, is because if we're going to see home prices come down, at the end of the day, what we need to see is an imbalance between supply and demand, an imbalance between homes for sale and the people that want to purchase those homes. And if we look back at the 2008 financial crash, the great financial crisis, really what happened was there was excess inventory. Builders were building like mad, which led to an oversupply of homes. And when buyers disappeared because of the recession and lending standards tightened, there was an extreme oversupply of houses, which led to prices coming down significantly. In the current market that we're at, we have an extreme undersupply of inventory with, at least I don't see the data to support that inventory is going to drastically increase in the future. So even if demand goes down slightly as we enter into potentially harder economic times, we're not going to have a significant supply and demand imbalance that's going to cause prices to go down. And that's what Goldman Sachs is arguing. And personally, I think that is the most likely scenario moving into the future. So at the beginning of this video, I talked about how this is going to increase the divide between the rich and the poor in our country. And I think it's going to do this because although there's more buyers, so right now there's more buyers than there are homes for sale. And even with these higher interest rates, it's still very competitive out there. And sellers have their choice of buyer for most properties to sale for sale, at least here in Vermont. That's the situation. So if you take the median sales price home, even if you're a buyer who can purchase that median sales price at home with these more expensive mortgage rates, if you don't have the financial means to go above asking, to waive the appraisal, or be willing to cover a large difference between appraised value and the purchase price, and be willing to take on potentially thousands of dollars in repairs immediately upon moving in, you're going to get beat out by somebody else who is more financially prepared and more financially stable than you are, who is willing to take all of that on. So because of this really makes things tough for the first-time home buyer, to somebody who wants to get into the housing market, who is spending a lot of money on rent, who doesn't have a ton saved up for a down payment or a large appraisal gap, or to spend thousands of dollars on repairs right when they move in. So they're not going to be able to purchase homes, or at least they're having a very hard time purchasing homes. And if home prices are going to remain stable and affordability is going to remain where it's at for the next few years, then the people that are purchasing homes are going to be people who are financially well off, are going to be rich people, and people who are poor and not financially well off are going to be dealing with higher rents and are going to be left behind, I think, personally, which is sad. But I think that's the reality of the situation that we're in and the market that we're in. So anyway, that's all I have for you folks today. Liam O'Reilly, Vermont Economic Realtor. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you folks. Do you think Goldman Sachs is right? All the links are in the description, so if you want to look at the research that I used to make this video, feel free to do so. Also, I am not a rich person. I purchased a property in this crazy market, so it is possible. If you are in the market and would like to purchase a home, I would be happy to help you do so. Or if you want to sell a home, reach out to me as well. I'd be happy to help you, whether you're in Vermont or somewhere else. If you're in Vermont, I'd be happy to help you directly. And if you're looking somewhere else, I'd be happy to find you a great realtor who knows what they're doing and can help you. Other than that, I hope you folks enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.